Don't need those.
Don't need those. The glasses are off. It's Husker Extra Live. Welcome in. I'm Parker. There's Sipple. Look at that shirt, Sipple. Where'd you get that?
Tricks. I don't know where she gets this stuff.
So that's an awesome shirt. Welcome in.
That's nice of you, Parker.
What?
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we got to have as much color as possible in these dark times.
Are they dark?
I don't know. No, they are for a lot of people. That's no laughing matter. But here we are. Here we are. It's Thursday. It's Husker Extra Live, presented by Tom Dinsdale Hyundai of Grand Island. Thank you to them for the support. You can see the logo up there in the corner, right above Sipple's forehead. If you squint really hard, you can read everything on there. But those are the guys you need: Tom Dinsdale Hyundai and Grand Island. We've got people filtering in. Sipple, I'm sure. We'll have a lot of questions from the folks as normal. Javon says, hey, guys. Jack says, I'm getting Illinois game vibes for this week. That would be a bad thing for Nebraska if Jack was right about that. Sipple, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say to you Nebraska at Purdue on Saturday?
David Bell and Rondale Moore.
Mm-hmm. And good place to start.
That would be one, and then 1A is Xander Horvath. The matchup is not exactly favorable for Nebraska because it's sort of a bad on bad matchup. Nebraska's struggling offense against a struggling defense. It would be better for Nebraska if its offense was really rolling and it was facing a bad defense, or if it's defense, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't set up perfect for Nebraska.
Yeah, I think that's why you saw the betting line where it was, right? What did it open at? Purdue by 1. I don't know if it's actually moved much. That's public information. Let's look at Vegas.
Check it out. I'll keep talking. Yeah, I mean, that's why it's not perfect. It's not a perfect matchup for Nebraska.
The line has gone from Purdue by 1 to Purdue by 2. So it's I don't know how much Vegas. I haven't read enough to know how much they're factoring the travel and a home game in this year, given there's no crowd. But I think you're right. The interesting thing, and I wrote about this for the Saturday's newspaper, I guess. So sneak peek here. Purdue is the most pass-heavy team in the Big Ten, percentage-wise, 62% pass so far this year. And it's the first team Nebraska will have played in 2020 that throws the ball more than it runs it. So not only do they have those two good receivers, but it's just a different style of challenge for Nebraska because it's the first team they've seen that, statistically speaking, throws it quite a bit more than they run it. So interesting challenge. It'll be I think it'll be interesting. It's going to probably look like a little bit of a different type of game than most of them that Nebraska's played so far this year. What do you think, Sipple? We go right to the questions here.
Yeah, let's do it. If there's some in there.
Justin says, "Is this a rerun or is Sip wearing the same shirt as last week?"
I don't think I wore this shirt last week.
I think it's a different floral print shirt.
That's possible. I don't think I wore it last week.
There you go. So Justin, it's not a rerun.
I know what game I wore it for. I wore it for the last home game that Nebraska had.
Oh yeah, and it drew many generous comments in the press box.
Yeah, so that was against
Illinois.
Oh, well, there you go.
But maybe this makes sense. That's why Jack's getting Illinois game vibes for this week, because of your shirt. Adam says it's time for Nebraska to play like Nebraska used to play. That would be nice, wouldn't it, Sipple?
Yeah. Depending on what he means by used to play.
2017, of course.
That would be good. I wouldn't expect it all to come back at once, though.
Right.
They don't have Grant Wistrom and Jason Peter and Tommy Frazier.
We heard Frost say last week that Jason and Grant couldn't do a lot of the things that they did back in the 90s, this day and age. So
this tender age.
This tender day.
Yes.
Kat, what's up? Hi. Luke, good evening, gentlemen. Always good to hear from you. Luke, thank you for being here, along with all the rest of you. Brent, any chance we get Mackenzie Milton to come play at Nebraska next year? That's Brett, not Brent. Sorry about that, Brett.
Well, there's a question. Yeah, I bet that there would be a chance. I did just read an article on ESPN though that said he wanted to go to a winner with a established offensive line and that doesn't have a veteran quarterback. So it doesn't. Nebraska doesn't exactly check all those boxes. You can figure out which ones I'm talking about. But that, yeah, I don't. Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I'm not. It's so early in that conversation. I'm not going to try to predict where it goes. Only to say, I think Frost Parker would be complicating matters a little bit in his program by taking that on.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It would mean, that would, I think invariably, if we just play that hypothetical out, that would lead to other movement in the quarterback room. Exactly what that would look like, impossible to say, obviously, but that would make, I would think, for an active offseason in the quarterback room, which some people might say, okay, then don't do it. And some people might say, great, go for it. Those are the kind of decisions that Scott Frost and Mario Verduzco and Matt Lubick get paid to make. So that's interesting that he said that. I did not read that story or that part of the story. The counter to that would just simply be the respect that Mackenzie Milton has for Scott Frost and Mario Verduzco, right? I talked to Mackenzie, who they call KZ, last year in October before Noah Vedral made his first start. And he told me that Verduzco was probably his favorite coach that he's ever had playing football, and said he'll probably always be my favorite coach that I've ever played for. So I don't know. Maybe it's a business decision, right? If you watch the video, Brett or anybody else that he put out in announcing his transfer, is very emotional. But one of the things he said was, I'm trying to use the logical part of my brain and not, basically this is a logic decision, not a heart decision, and so what that means, I don't know. Only he knows, and only the people that recruit him obviously are going to know. And obviously then health is a factor too.
From Nebraska's perspective, you could also, I don't know, isn't there a world where the quarterback room wouldn't have to change if he came? Isn't there a world where they would just say, Mackenzie's here to compete for a year. He's going to compete. We'll see how it goes. And does it necessarily mean that somebody's got to leave?
If you were a junior that had started 25 plus games and they brought in a graduate transfer who they'd coached before, how would you feel about that?
Well, isn't there a world, I'm just going to continue in that vein, where that junior would say, I'm just going to beat him out and not just concede?
Sure. Yeah. Maybe.
Isn't that an option too for Adrian, just to say, well, I don't care who they bring in, I'll beat him out?
Yeah, that's definitely an option. And it's probably changed a little bit. I don't know. The calculus is going to be, everyone's going to have to make their own calculus on what they do with their extra year of eligibility, right? In a normal, without the pandemic, there'd be one more year, although Adrian has redshirt years. So, he's theoretically got 3 years after this year that he could. So anyways, yeah, it'd be a complicated situation. I think it's probably too early to fully dive down that. But of course, Milton's in the portal as of today. So it'll be very interesting to see how his recruitment develops, regardless of where he ends up. Josh asks, do you think Luke's future at Nebraska is best suited in a Taysom Hill type position?
Yes and no. Boy, it's a tough question. Those are so hard. That's such a hard question. Because you don't know if he would even be willing to play that
right.
sort of. So it's dependent, first of all, on willingness. And then,
don't you think there's a universe where we could just have a universe where he would just do whatever is best for the team?
Yeah. Is there a world where he would just say, I'll play wing back. I'll do what I have to do. I don't know. No, going back to that conversation, isn't it possible that Logan Smothers or McCaffrey would just say, I don't care if he's here.
Sure.
Why do I gotta leave? I mean, I'll beat him out.
I think the conversation's a lot different for both of those guys you mentioned than it would be for Martinez in this situation, simply because of where they're at in their eligibility.
Yeah, but I don't understand quite why Mackenzie Milton, coming off a horrible leg injury, would necessarily have an edge over Adrian Martinez.
Yeah, no, I think it's more to the point of Joe Burrow could have stayed and tried to say, well, I'm just going to try to beat out Dwayne Haskins. They said it was close, so I'm just going to do it.
Right. Yeah. Burrow didn't have a ravaged knee, though. So.
Well, no, I don't understand, but he's the one that left. He's Adrian in this situation.
Yeah.
In this hypothetical that we're building.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Burrow, I wonder how close Burrow was just to saying, I'll just keep competing for the job. He left after they named Haskins.
Yeah.
So would Adrian, in this case, maybe Adrian would play it up until they made a decision, and then go.
It would be interesting. I
don't know. See, here's the thing. I don't know if Frost wants to invite all this, this sort of complication,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be interesting. It's a competitive conversation, and it's a what's best for the program conversation. It's also a very human conversation about, there's obviously a lot of shared history between the guys on Nebraska staff and Mackenzie Milton. And then there's obviously a built shared history between the guys on the staff and both, all three, Luke, Adrian, and Logan. So
I just don't know if there's enough room for all of that investment, all of that emotional investment, all of the investment period.
Josh, to your question, just a little bit further on McCaffrey, he's still such a young player. That's the thing. I mean, fans, there was so much clamoring to see McCaffrey, and the thinking was that he was going to struggle at some point, when he was put in as in a chance to be the full-time quarterback, and he did. And now people wonder if he can do it. And I just think, the guy played 1 year of quarterback basically in high school. I don't think full time. I don't think that Nebraska has intentions of giving up on him as a quarterback anytime soon.
I don't think so either.
At some point, depending on how he develops, there could come a time. He comes from a smart family, a football family, a family that has shown over the course of, Dylan McCaffrey, his older brothers, Dylan, Max, and Christian, that they're not going to rush into decisions and all of that. Like, could it come to a point where he makes the sort of calculated decision, if I want to play in the NFL, I probably need to do it at receiver or whatever? Maybe that day could come, but I don't see any reason why it needs to be now, or why it needs to be between now and spring ball or something like that. I just don't. He's so young. He's got 4 years of eligibility still beginning next year. I just think they're going to give him every opportunity they can to let him play quarterback.
I do. I would think so. And I guess then the question becomes, does he have a willingness to hang in there if he's not the guy,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Chris asks, will Mills be back this week? That would be an emotional lift. Chris, don't know. Frost said today they have their fingers crossed that he'll play this weekend, which on a Thursday afternoon, read into that what you will.
Yeah, Parker, here's something to think about. If Mills doesn't play, are people going to keep reading into it, or is it just he's hurt?
People are reading into it already. I don't know if they're right or not, but yeah, I think it's going to continue to be a conversation. Especially, what will be interesting is, he didn't even make the trip to Iowa City last week. So, and Ronald Tompkins did. Ronald Tompkins didn't even look like he was close to playing. So, I think the first item is, does he make the trip? That'll give you some idea of how close to playing he is.
Okay, I got a question for you, Parker. I got a question for you. If we're sitting up there in the press box at Ross Aid, mm-hmm. and you look down, as you do, dutifully tracking who's on the travel roster, and you see no Dedrick Mills, what goes through your mind? Anything?
Well, you wonder, but from what I've gathered, it's a knee injury, and that's not easy to get over if you're a running back. we've seen a lot of guys, and I'm not saying that this is the case with Dedrick Miller. We've seen a lot of guys, I think, be careful with injury situations this year, whether that's eventually deciding to, opt out or not play anymore the rest of the way, or if that's just, hey, I'm healthy before I go back on the field and put myself at risk in a sort of shortened season when my eligibility clock isn't ticking and all that. Like, you want, in an ideal world, you want everybody to be out there all the time and playing and all that. And I think that this year it's just been slightly different than that. I don't know if any of that applies. I don't know if any of that applies to Dedrick Mill's situation.
I know. I'm just going to go with he's hurt. He has an injury, a knee injury, until I hear something different. Credible.
There you go. That's a good way to approach it, Sipple. Gonna have to try to play Big Ten football and be tough, Brian says.
Kind of. Purdue, like Parker pointed out, doesn't play like kind of the Big Ten football we've come to understand, which is more run oriented. They're the like you said, Parker. So they pass it 62% of the time. 62. Yep. So it's a little different Big Ten game. Not saying they're not tough. Horvath is a tough runner. They're obviously they're a tough Big Ten team. But they're a little like you said, Parker. They're a little different than what the Garden variety is. Yeah,
they are. So I think it'll be interesting to see. And actually, should say, friend of the program, former Journal Star beat writer Brian Christopherson was just tweeting from Jeff Brom. Was listening to Jeff Brom talk today, and Brom said they've had some guys opt out who won't be available Saturday, but wouldn't say who they were. So. Don't know if those are key players or anything like that, but Nebraska's certainly not the only team out there wondering about availability. So it sounds like there's going to be some guys who have played up to this point for Purdue that are not going to play against Nebraska or the rest of the way. So we'll just have to wait and see.
We haven't heard anything about Rondale on that front, right?
No, we haven't. He's played the last 2 weeks, but have not. It's sort of been just in following guys and gals that cover Purdue. It's sort of been a week-to-week thing of looking to see if he's out there before the game each week. So
he's played 2 games. He's played 2 games, right?
Yep, 2 games, and he has 22 catches in 2 games.
But they're 0-2.
Yes.
They're 0-2 with Rondale Moore, and they won 2 without him. So you got to think about that,
Yeah, he's still pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He had 15 for 117 his first game back. So
he's good. He's not their best receiver, though.
Nope. That would be David Bell. He's really good. Yeah. Combined in the last 2 weeks, the 2 games that they've both played, they've combined for 34 catches and 364 yards.
See, that'll be tough.
Pretty good.
That'll be tough because they do have a runner too. They
Horvath.
Yeah.
And what's their third receiver was having a nice season and sort of slid down the pecking order when Rondale came back.
Milton Wright.
Yeah,
Milton Wright is a sophomore, and he is good. He's 6'2", 200. He would look very good in scarlet and cream.
Rick asks, Javon says, this will be a game of redemption for the Huskers. I'm feeling good about this game, guys. There you go. Javon offsets Jack earlier, feeling bad about it. So Rick asks why we haven't heard anything about Logan Smothers, I think is who he's asking about, the freshman quarterback. Rick, part of that, I'm going to turn this over to Sipple momentarily, but one of the things that happens over the course of a normal season that's not during a pandemic is we're over there for post-practice interviews on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But Tuesday and Wednesday in particular, the assistant coaches come off the practice field and then most of them talk, half of them one day, half of them the other. And so you can sort of catch up, even if it's not much, you got 2 questions for Ryan Held. You can ask him pretty much any week you want. And same of Mario Verduzco, the quarterback's coach, same of Mike Dawson, the outside linebackers coach. This year's been different because everything's happening on Zoom. So we're talking to both coordinators each week, but one assistant coach beyond that, not every assistant coach beyond that. So we haven't actually talked to Mario Verduzco in an interview setting since before the season started, I think. And so that's part of it. We only have so much time with the coordinators. And so I think that much less of the talk with assistant coaches, generally speaking, has been about guys who sort of are in that developmental group or aren't playing at this point because we have substantially less amount of time to interview coaches overall over the course of a week. So just sort of like operationally, that's why you haven't heard anything about Logan Smothers. In terms of the depth chart, it's pretty clear that he's substantially behind Martinez and McCaffrey. You don't have to look any further than the fact that he's on the headset helping call plays in or relay signals in during the game. And McCaffrey and Martinez don't do that. When one of them's in the game, one of them's on the sideline, either standing next to Frost or on the headset talking to Mario. But Logan Smothers is very much, he's on the headset and he's, just relaying signals in. So that's that. Having said that, we may have a little bit of information about Logan Smothers tonight because Mario Verduzco, I think, is on the radio. Is that right, Sib?
Yeah, he's on Husker Sports Nightly.
Yeah.
I believe it's 7:00. And I wanted you to answer that question. You did fabulously. I don't have anything to add. I don't know what I can say about Logan Smothers. Mario will shed light on that tonight.
Yeah. So Sipple's going to be handling that on the radio. So all you got to do is follow at Husker Extra Sip, which you undoubtedly already do. And you should have some Logan Smothers content tonight. Cam Jurgens, Rosalind says, tackle eligible. Yeah. He's playing center on Saturday is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Austin, think we'll see more blitz packages against Purdue's pass-heavy offense? That's a good question.
Yeah.
They're going to need to generate some pressure, that's for sure.
I would say yes. I think Chenander's inclined that way, and I think you'll see it.
Mackenzie Milton next year. Yeah, Bradley talked about it a little bit earlier. I know we're behind because we got a bunch of comments in here and we talk a lot. We'll see. It's just going to be very interesting to see what happens on that front. Adam, I keep saying Nebraska will never be as dominant as they were in the 90s. That was the golden era and a special time.
Yeah, I can't see it. It's really hard to envision. It's like, I don't know, I think the 97 team I was looking the other day had 19 guys that on the defense that went to the NFL. 19 on one team on one side. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we'll see that again.
Kat asked, will Milton be a grad transfer here after next year? Yeah, Kat, that's definitely a possibility. The key really is going to be about Milton's health because he was talking today in announcing his transfer about wanting a shot at playing in the NFL. So if he's healthy enough, he's going to try to play football for a long time and make some money at it, obviously. But Frost said a couple weeks ago on the radio that he has an open door if he wants it to come coach at Nebraska whenever he's done playing. So
I'm glad Kat asked that question, though. We would have been remiss not to mention he's just got 1 year, year left. So that's it. So yeah, thanks for asking that, Kat.
Sipple, Tim has a rant that you'll appreciate. I'm just going to read this. I'm just going to read this verbatim. Okay. Tim says, I just don't understand the mindset that people have about our quarterback play. People think that Milton can transfer here and change things. Do people not understand that we have a quarterback who's probably more athletic than Milton right now? Do people not understand that it's our offensive line play? You can put Justin Fields in the backfield and it's going to be the same result. I just don't understand how people are so ignorant to our situation.
Well, he's got a point. It's a little harshly worded, but he's got a point. There's no guarantees that Mackenzie Milton, even if he were healthy, would look like the Mackenzie Milton that guided UCF in 2017, because there's no doubt that UCF had better skill players than Nebraska.
Right. Yeah.
And I would say vastly superior.
Oh yeah.
So that's a big difference. And the league's a big difference. It's a big difference playing in the Big Ten versus the AAC. So I agree with Tim largely. And I don't think it's just about Nebraska. I think it's about the conference too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like you slide him from one quarterback job to the next and you're going to get the same production no matter what. It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. This offense would look different, I'm convinced, if Justin Fields was running it, but that's another conversation.
No, that's probably safe to say.
Yeah. Will the O-line toe the rope better this week to allow Adrian to work his magic, Javon asks.
Well, the offense should have a good chance to move the ball because they're playing a defense that's reeling. Well, they're playing – Parker, we've both read Chris Basnett's breakdown of the Purdue Boilermakers, and you saw that Rutgers had an 18-play drive against Purdue, an 18-play drive.
Yep.
You saw that Purdue had the ball in the fourth quarter for a grand total of 4 plays because Rutgers held the ball the entire quarter. Nebraska should be able to move the ball on them, and it shouldn't require magic to do it. They should just be able to do it.
Yeah, I think the quarterback run game is at this point, it's a big part of Nebraska's offense percentage-wise and all that anyways, but it's particularly critical this week because it's not something that Purdue's handled particularly well this year. So if those guys, if Adrian and Luke can grind it out on the ground, and obviously whatever, the more big plays, the better through the passing game or with running backs or whatever, but those guys have a chance, I think, to sort of, take control of the game. James asked, does Scott Frost survive 2021 with another losing season and no bowl game?
Yes. Short answer is yes. He's not going to get fired, barring just an utter catastrophe. And it would probably require some sort of maybe rules violation or something. I think a barring catastrophe, he would survive that scenario. Now you might consider that a catastrophe, but if they're 5-7, that's not really a catastrophe. It would be pretty awful, but I don't think it would get him fired.
Ryan says, bring Milton in for a year to show Smothers how to efficiently run this offense. See, one of the fascinating things about this topic is that it engenders a lot of different thoughts, which I like.
I know it does, but I don't think Mackenzie Milton's interested in that.
Dean asks, sorry, Sipple, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I don't think Mackenzie Milton wants to come in and be a teacher. He wants to come in and win games, a lot of them. He wants to go to a winner is what he said.
Dean asks, is this a must-win game, Sipple?
I've always said at Nebraska, every game's a huge game, and especially if you lose. So that, it's always, I think here you're in that. Yeah, and I guess from the standpoint that you've only won 2 games in your last 11, certainly from that standpoint, I think there's pressure because of that. There's pressure because Rutgers just beat them without their starting quarterback.
Yep.
I think that does add pressure to this. It's not, the optics won't be good if Nebraska were to lose a week after Rutgers beats them in West Lafayette.
Well, what would be interesting, Sipple, is if on that crossover weekend on December 19th, assuming that looks anything remotely like what it was originally supposed to look like, which is probably an open question, if Nebraska and Rutgers got lined up against each other. One of the possibilities for sure.
It's become a tough game. I only base that on what I saw, which I saw the entirety of the Rutgers-Michigan game. So I got a good look at Rutgers because it went into overtime. And Rutgers, I think they give Nebraska all at once. That was my read.
Yeah, Shiano's got them playing hard. They're not overly talented, but they've got some skill. They've got some receivers that can play. And their defense isn't great, but they play hard. Well,
their interior D line's good. They get in the backfield as well as anybody in the Big Ten. They're a little scary up front. They have an interior lineman, I can't say his name, he's scary. He's in the backfield a lot. They're in the backfield a lot.
One of the areas where Nebraska's really taken its lumps this year is against interior defensive linemen. And they faced a lot of good ones, really good ones. But that's life in this conference. You're going to face NFL guys on the defensive interior almost every week. I remember when Scott Frost said the Big Ten will have to adjust to Nebraska. I really think it's the opposite now. Adam, that's a good memory because that was 3 years ago today.
Oh my gosh, Parker. Wow.
December 3rd, 2017 was the day Scott Frost was introduced as the head coach of Nebraska.
Well, I'll be darned.
Yep. There you
go. That would have been a good column.
A lifetime ago.
Yeah.
Let's see. You got more Milton talk on YouTube. He's a culture fixer. He knows what it takes to make this offense go. I think that would be an interesting facet of it.
Yes.
Hard for a graduate transfer to have a major impact. Although, again, we've seen it happen before.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Gosh, we got a lot of good. Thank you guys so much for all the interaction here. Moose said 1 to 2 more years. He'll get it, like it or not. Jake said, yeah, talking about Frost. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of runway here.
Moose,
you think Cat?
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
Moose has said that you don't judge a coach until his program's established. Moose has said Frost will have his program established in 5 years. So I think you've got to look at what Frost has done after his 5th year. That's when you really get serious about it. Now you're serious. Now don't get me wrong. Obviously, by the way we cover and write about this team, we're serious about it. But as far as making judgments about his future, I wouldn't start that conversation all that seriously until after year 5.
Kat asks, do you think the offense will get rid of the penalties and mistakes and play a clean game this week? And how productive can they be with a clean game?
Well, what did Frost say this week? If they don't, they've built the stat. They've told this stat to the guys, to their players, that if on drives where they don't commit a penalty or a turnover or slip behind the chains somehow, they scored 90% of the time.
Yeah, 90% of the time.
Yeah, 90. So that sort of answers that question.
Yeah, I don't know if they can. They haven't very often this year.
Hey, Parker, I got one for you. I got a question for you.
Yeah. Steve, what's up?
Remember when Frost said in practices they don't stop and blow the whistle when there's a mistake? They handle that in film study. Do you think if they're having penalty issues and snap issues in practice and they don't stop, is that something they should consider doing if they're not?
Yeah. I mean, I think you saw. I mean, Frost said that 1 week. I don't know if they've continued this, but that 1 week. Remember they had to run a lap if they committed a penalty in practice.
Okay, that's a good point.
And Frost said that I thought it was interesting that Frost said he never thought he'd have to do that. So clearly that's not part of the philosophy, just the way he wants to do it or the way he had done it in the past. I do wonder if it's something that changes over the course of time. And, coaches adjust. Coaches make big changes all the time over the course of their career in terms of how they do things. They tweak this, they tweak that. And you might look back 5 years later and say, man, it's really quite a bit has changed about the way we do things. So, yeah, that's a long way of saying I don't really know. But you would think that if something's not working, that you might try emphasizing it in a different way.
Yes.
Let's go back to the attacking defense we had in the 90s. There's no pass rush anymore. Adam, I'm not smart enough to know the whole issue here, but I'm going to say that that's more about Jimmys and Joes than X's and O's, so to speak.
Yeah. I think I agree wholeheartedly. I think Chenander has a pretty aggressive scheme. Wouldn't you say that?
He does.
Are you patronizing me right now?
I'm not patronizing. He does. He wants to play aggressive. We've seen him take some chances. Early in the season, it seemed like they were caught in between where they got beat on third down. He likes to bring some pressure on third down.
Yes.
Then he tried to be a little more, he said maybe got to take a few more chances on early downs to try to create some third and longs. And that actually, that's worked to some degree, some of the run blitzing they've done and all that, but they don't want to bring pressure all the time. I mean, you can't just continually bring 5,
nope.
Or even 6 and expect to survive on the back end, but he's always going to pick his spots and they do play relatively aggressive.
Parker, I think people have forgotten what a great pass rusher looks like.
Yes, yeah,
It's been-
100%.
yeah, I do. I think some Nebraska fans have literally forgotten what it looks like to have a guy like Randy Gregory getting 10 and a half sacks in a season and having offenses have to slant their protection towards one guy. And that's on a line that had Malik Collins and Vincent Valentine and Avery Moss. They forget what it's like to have Pierre Allen on an edge with Barry Turner on the other edge and Sue and Crick in the middle.
Yeah.
That's how you generate pressure. You know what pressure is? 4-man. That's getting home with 4. That's the world you want to be in, right?
Yep.
You don't have to bring pressure because you got guys that bring it with 4 every time they throw it.
Yep.
And that I just think sometimes that Nebraska fans have forgotten that it wasn't that long ago they had that sort of personnel, but they don't have it now.
It was amazing. There were like oohs and ahs from the Nebraska folks in the press box when Casey Rogers ripped around the edge and sacked Spencer Petras on the last play of the first half against Iowa. It's like, whoa. Did you see that? A defensive line just blew by a defensive end just blew by a tackle and sacked the quarterback. It was like he had come from a foreign country or something.
Yes.
Not quite like that.
That should happen fairly regularly, actually.
Joshua says Purdue has 7 starters opting out. Nebraska 1.5 with a 10K bet. For entertainment purposes only.
Wow. Hey, now wait a second. They have 10 people opting out?
7 starters opting out is what Joshua said. I just was pulling up Brahms quotes here. I didn't see a hard number, although I haven't been doing this, so I haven't looked that carefully. But he was asked if the team is still hungry, and he said, well, I hope so, and I think they are. And then let's see, somewhere along here, he said he referenced there'll be a handful of guys opt out that will be missing on Saturday.
I wonder how many of those are on defense, because what I heard early in the week is that they were having some internal problems on defense. So I would watch pretty closely, or I'll not probably watch. I'll ask Tom Dienhart, who covers the team, during the first part of the game, how many guys are out of there. You know?
Yep. A couple more, and then let's get out of here, Sipple. Let's see. Safe to say we won't see Omar this season. Jonathan, I mean, I think it's safe to say that, but who knows? I mean, it just depends on if he gets to a point where he's healthy. And again, like we've said all along, that seems to mean physical health and mental health. It's hard to know. It wasn't asked of Scott Frost this week if he had been at practice or was working or out or whatever. I think I hate to sound like a coach on this, but at this point, the best course of action is just to focus and watch the guys that are there. Cause I mean, that's all you can, Yeah. I know I get it. Like it's frustrating that Marcus Fleming left if you're a fan and all that, but like the guy doesn't want to be around. He's not going to do you any good. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Do the quarterbacks clap for the snap this week? Justin asked. Yeah, that'll be something to watch.
It will. Yeah.
It's the Boomer and his son show, Big Pete says. I think Big Pete called you a boomer there, Sipple.
Oh, no, just registered exactly what he's getting at. A boomer, yes.
Boomer.
Yeah, boomer.
How about, speaking of boomer, how about Bob Stoops on the practice field down in Norman this week?
Yeah, what'd you say, getting warmed up for the Iowa gig? I shouldn't out you like that.
I don't think we need to put Nebraska fans through any more trauma before that time comes.
No, that's not fair for me to take our private conversations right to Facebook. God knows you could get me in a lot of trouble for that.
I make a lot of smart-ass comments. That was one of them. And I have no idea if it's rooted in any sort of reality.
I'm sorry I did that. I thought it was interesting. It's been on my mind a little bit.
Well, that would certainly be an interesting development if it happened.
Yes, it would.
You know what's okay. So wait a second. Just not on the Stoops front, but When we left Iowa City on Saturday morning, you had grabbed a Cedar Rapids Gazette.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so interesting. I think that there's widely nationally that there's some thought that Kirk Ferentz will not be in that job much longer. He's 65. Obviously, it's been a rough year in terms of the off-the-field stuff that they went through this offseason. But gosh, I mean, reading the coverage from the people that cover Iowa, they just talk about it as if it's a foregone conclusion.
A little bit that he's moving on.
Yeah, the lead was like in the waning days of Kirk Ferentz's career or something like that. Like, oh, yeah. Did he announce that he was retiring or something? That I didn't.
No. And some of it is they're deriving it, I think, from the fact he's really been uncharacteristically colorful. I mean, his post-game comments have typically been reserved, and they're really no longer reserved. Or at least there's two distinct cases this year after the Minnesota game where he called the late timeouts, and then after the game said, "I figured I'd leave my timeouts here and take the Floyd of Rosedale trophy with us." And then, of course, after the Nebraska's clapgate, I mean, he wouldn't stop. You know, he kept going on about it.
Back to it.
Yeah.
What the hell are we talking about?
Yeah, he got up on his soapbox. You know,
he did, just like you, Boomer.
I try to avoid it. Okay.
One more, then we're out of here. We're closing on this. Luke asks, could Nebraska's offense have an awakening considering how bad Purdue's defense is, or is it more in Nebraska's own hands?
I think that's a good question. I think they'd be more apt to have an awakening if Dedrick Mills is on hand and healthy, because I think that could open up a lot of things, or not a lot of things, but it would help. It would help for instance, the downfield passing game. I think if you have a legitimate threat at running back that they're really worried about that could suck the safeties up and get some play action, I think that could help. I don't know. I would like to think they can get some things going, but it's not like Nebraska's loaded down with big play threats at the skill positions right now.
This is going to be a gross oversimplification, but the thing that Nebraska and that Scott Frost has been imploring of his quarterbacks has been to take the game to opponents, right? Impose your will, be decisive, play fast, and just in generally speaking, the way that Bob Diaco's system is set up, I just wonder if those guys, Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey, to the extent that we see both of them, can do that, because it's not a system. They're not going to get blitzed 40 times, not unless Diaco steps way outside of what his system really is about, right? So I just wonder if this is an opportunity for those guys to really dictate the flow of the game and to say, okay, if you're going to try to catch us, you know, if you're just going to try to keep us from hitting the big play, then we're just going to keep taking what you'll give.
Yeah. And then get the red zone.
If the dam breaks.
And then get the red zone. That'll get you to the red zone, but you got to make it happen in the red zone then. And Diaco, remember, that's where he tries to pay the bills by luring teams into the red zone, then stopping them.
I just think you're playing a dangerous game if you allow Adrian Martinez or Luke McCaffrey to get into a rhythm, because we've seen them both capable of playing well and playing fast once they've got a rhythm established and once they've got some confidence and a flow to the game built up. So
yeah, and
whether that happens or not.
Yeah. But hey, Parker, let me amend something I just said. There's no defensive coordinator walking the earth that tries to lure teams into the red zone. That's not that's not an accurate characterization, but he does emphasize not, avoiding big plays. So I think there'll be a lot of real estate available between the 20s.
We're chewing up real estate on the internet, that's for sure. 44 minutes. That's going to be a big video file sitting out there on the web. That's all we've got for tonight. Thank you so much for everybody that participated. We've got a ton of good questions in there. Sorry we did not get to all of them. We've got a ton of stuff on huskerextra.com. This has been Husker Extra Live, presented by Tom Dinsdale Hyundai of Grand Island. For Boomer there. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you from West Lafayette on Saturday.